He left us here.
I'm done, Amina. You and that kid, not my problem anymore. Those words weren't screamed in anger. They were whispered, flat and final, typed out in a text message with the kind of cold detachment that changes a life in 1 second. Amina Ray stood alone under the buzzing fluorescent lights of an Exxon gas station off Route 1 in Newark, New Jersey. It was 10:46 p.m. on a stormy Thursday night, and rain was pouring down like the sky had a grudge. She was soaked to the skin, one hand clutching her 6-month-old daughter, Nevaeh, the other gripping a phone with a cracked screen and a shattered message. She blinked hard, not because of the rain, but because her brain couldn't process what just happened. The father of her child, the man she'd loved, the man she had just spent the last 2 years defending to everyone who said she could do better, had just driven off in her only car, taking the last $20 in gas and every ounce of stability with him. No warning, no argument, just gone. "Ma'am, you can't stay here," the gas station attendant called from behind the glass. He didn't open the door, just yelled through the intercom with eyes full of suspicion. "You need to leave, now." Amina's heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. Nevaeh whimpered softly against her chest, bundled in a too thin blanket. The wind cut through her jeans like knives. Where would she go? She didn't have family, not anymore. She had no wallet, no ride, and not even a dry diaper in her bag. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, a group of guys in a pickup truck rolled past slowly. White boys, maybe early 20s. One leaned out the window with a smirk. "Damn, baby mama drama, huh? Guess your baby daddy figured out he had better options." They laughed, peeled off, tires screeched. This wasn't just a breakup, it was erasure. Amina Ray, smart, beautiful, proud, was now a ghost under a broken light in the pouring rain, holding the only thing that still gave her life purpose. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "God, please, anything." That's when it happened. A car pulled into the station, not just any car, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom, gliding across the wet pavement like a shadow with secrets. The engine purred like a predator. The door opened slowly. A tall, dark-skinned man in a tailored charcoal suit stepped out, umbrella in hand. His voice was smooth, commanding, and unmistakably powerful. "Miss, are you okay?" Amina froze, not because of fear, but because for the first time in hours, someone had looked at her, not like a problem, but like a person. And this man was no stranger. His name was Elijah Vaughn, a billionaire, a man who had grown up 2 blocks from where Amina stood. And what he did next would change both of their lives forever. This is not just a story about heartbreak. It's not even just a comeback. This is a black story about worth, dignity, and the kind of love that doesn't just show up, it stays. Welcome to Hidden Worth. If stories like this speak to your soul, tap that subscribe and stick with us. Because what happens next, you won't believe who Amina becomes. Amina Ray wasn't supposed to end up here. Just a year ago, she was the one customer at Lucky's Diner remembered for her radiant smile, for how she balanced 5 plates on one arm like a magician, and for the way she greeted even the rudest regulars like they mattered. She made $9 an hour plus tips and still managed to tuck away a little every week for her daughter's future. She didn't have much, but she had pride. She had a plan. That plan didn't include standing in the pouring rain with a crying baby, heartbroken and humiliated, watching her life collapse in real time. But life rarely follows the script. When Tyrese moved in, he came with charm and swagger and promises. He told her he'd get a better job and that she could rest, that he'd take care of her and the baby once it was born. And for a moment, Amina believed it, believed in him, believed in them. Then came the slowly building silence, the late nights, the money that disappeared, the phone calls he always took outside, the way he flinched when she asked about rent or about his job search or where her EBT card had gone. By the time Nevaeh was born, Amina had already done 90% of the parenting. Feeding, diapers, doctor visits, and up at 3 a.m. singing lullabies to soothe her daughter's tiny cries while Tyrese snored through it in the other room. Still, she told herself it was temporary, that things would get better. Until they didn't. Until that night at the gas station when the man she once called her partner drove off and made his message painfully clear. You're on your own. And now, under that gas station canopy, reality came crashing down like the rain around her. She had no car, no home, no job, no money, no support system. Her manager at the diner had let her go 3 months earlier after too many missed shifts. I like you, Amina, he had said, not unkindly, but we need someone who can show up. Her mother passed 3 years ago. Her father, if he were still alive, hadn't called since she was 15. No siblings, no close friends. Just a few kind coworkers who had their own kids and bills to worry about. Amina knew how these stories ended. She'd seen it play out for too many women who looked like her. Black women who got labeled unfit by the system, who lost their kids to strangers in courtrooms where nobody cared why they were struggling. She could almost hear it now. Neglect, unstable housing, endangering the welfare of a minor. If a cop showed up tonight and saw her in this condition, drenched, exhausted, holding a baby with no car, no cash, and no address, what would they do? Would they help her, or would they call Child Protective Services and tear her baby from her arms? The thought made her legs buckle slightly. Nevaeh squirmed in the wrap against her chest, her tiny mouth searching for comfort, for warmth, for milk. But Amina hadn't eaten since a peanut butter sandwich at noon. Her milk had started drying up days ago, stress shutting her body down in the cruelest way. She pulled her daughter tighter against her, whispering through chattering teeth, "I'm here, baby. I got you. I'm not going to let them take you." But her words were starting to feel like wishes, not facts. The stakes couldn't have been higher. She wasn't just fighting for shelter. She was fighting for her child's future, for her right to be a mother, for the slim hope that one day Nevaeh wouldn't remember this night at all. And yet, beneath the fear, a spark still flickered in Amina's chest. She hadn't survived everything she'd already endured. Racism from teachers who never called on her, customers who assumed she was lazy, managers who scheduled her worst shifts because she could handle it, just to give up now. This was the moment that would define her. Not because of what Tyrese did, but because of what she chose to do next. In the stillness that followed Elijah's question, "Are you okay?" Amina didn't know she was being watched, not just by a billionaire, but by fate itself. And it was waiting to see if she'd sink or rise. The first thing Amina noticed about the man was not his wealth. It wasn't the polished leather shoes or the platinum cufflinks that glimmered under the gas station lights. It wasn't even the car, though the Rolls-Royce Phantom parked by pump number 4 looked more like a spacecraft than a vehicle made for the streets of Newark. It was his eyes, calm, focused, no fear, no pity. He held the umbrella above her as if she were royalty, shielding her and the baby from the rain without hesitation. His other hand, steady and warm, reached toward her without touching. "I asked if you're okay," he repeated, voice low and measured. Amina hesitated, eyes narrowing. She'd been raised to be cautious, especially around powerful men offering help, especially around strangers who didn't know her daughter, and didn't owe her a damn thing. She studied his face, late 40s, maybe early 50s, clean-shaven, smooth dark skin. He looked like the kind of man who could walk into any boardroom in Manhattan and take over without raising his voice. "I'm fine," she muttered. A lie, but she said it anyway. He looked at her a moment longer, then glanced at the baby wrapped tightly to her chest. "Your daughter?" Amina gave a small nod, suddenly embarrassed by how soaked they both were. "What's her name?" "Nevaeh," she said softly. Heaven spelled backwards. He smiled. Not a polite one, a real smile, Like the name touched something in him. "She's beautiful," he said. A long pause followed. Then, quietly, he asked, "Where's your car?" The words pierced deeper than he probably meant. Amina couldn't stop her voice from cracking. "He took it." "Who?" She blinked. She wasn't sure why she was telling him, but the words came anyway. "My ex, her father. He filled up the tank and left. I came out and the car was gone." The man didn't react with surprise or sympathy, just a quiet nod, like he'd seen this sort of pain before. He didn't ask for more, didn't press, didn't judge. Instead, he stepped back toward the car and opened the rear passenger door. "Get in," he said simply. Amina stiffened. "I don't know you." "No, you don't," he agreed. "But I know enough to say you don't belong standing out here in the rain with your baby and no way home." He handed her a business card. "Elijah Vaughn," she read aloud. The name hit her like a memory she didn't know she had. She looked up sharply. "You're the Elijah Vaughn?" "The press likes to throw that 'the' in front of everything," he replied casually. "But yeah, that's me." Amina's mouth went dry. She'd read about him. Everyone in Jersey had. He was the self-made billionaire who built a logistics empire from scratch. Started as a warehouse janitor at 18. Owned over a dozen companies now. Still lived in the state. Gave millions to education and single mother foundations. She stared at the card in disbelief. "I'm not looking for a handout," she said quickly, instinctively. "I'm not offering one," Elijah replied. "Just a ride and a warm place to sleep." Amina hesitated for a beat longer. Then Nevaeh stirred against her, letting out a soft cry. The rain picked up again. Sometimes survival doesn't come with dignity. Sometimes it comes with hard choices. And sometimes it comes in the form of a stranger with quiet eyes and a dry car. She got in. The heat inside the car enveloped her instantly. Leather seats, the scent of cedar and something citrusy. She held Nevaeh close and tried not to let her exhaustion show. Elijah didn't speak much on the drive. He made a single phone call, quiet and quick. "Have them prep a room, baby too. Don't ask questions." Then silence. He dropped her off at a boutique hotel downtown. Not a chain, not flashy, but elegant, safe. The kind of place that didn't usually open its doors to women who smelled like rain and fear. A concierge was already waiting. "We've got everything you might need, Miss Ray," the young woman said, gently guiding her inside. "Fresh clothes, baby formula, crib, diapers, wipes. Just press 0 if you need anything." Amina stood in the suite for a full minute before she realized she was crying. Not from fear, not from shame, from relief. On the desk beside the bed, next to a sealed envelope with her name on it, was a second business card. "Elijah Vaughn, Vaughn Foundation Monday. Noon, 10th floor. Nothing else. No promises, no lectures, no strings." He didn't give her hope, he gave her a choice. And sometimes, that's more powerful than anything. Monday came faster than she expected. Amina stood outside the tall glass building on Broad Street, staring up at the Vaughn Foundation logo like it was a test she hadn't studied for. She wore the only clean blouse that had been left folded in the hotel suite. White, crisp, a size too big, but tucked in neatly. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun, her shoes were borrowed from the hotel's donation closet, and her stomach had been twisting since sunrise. Nevaeh was with a hotel nanny, certified, background checked, and warm as sunshine. Elijah had arranged it through his staff, no questions asked. Still, Amina's hand shook slightly as she pressed the elevator button. What was she doing here? This was a billionaire's world. Suits, coffee served on trays, and people with degrees from Ivy League schools. Not girls who used to mop sticky floors at diners and count their tips to buy baby formula. But she remembered the card. Monday, noon, 10th floor. He'd said it without pressure, without promise, but also without hesitation. The elevator dinged open to a bright office space that looked more like an art gallery than a nonprofit. Natural light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. There were indoor plants taller than her and chairs that probably cost more than her rent used to. A woman in her mid-40s with curly hair and tortoiseshell glasses looked up from the reception desk. "You must be Amina Ray," she said, standing. "Mr. Vaughn's expecting you. I'm Joy. Come with me." Amina followed her down a hallway lined with photographs, black mothers holding babies, scholarship recipients in graduation gowns, and volunteers handing out winter coats. Every image radiated purpose. They reached a small office. Elijah was already inside, sitting at a desk with a view that stretched across the city. He wasn't in a suit this time, just a button-up shirt with rolled sleeves and that same quiet presence. "You came," he said simply. "I didn't think I would," Amina replied honestly. "But I did." He nodded. "Sit." She did. "What do you know about this foundation?" he asked. "I know you help people," she said. "Single mothers, re-entry programs, scholarships. You do your homework." A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "I read every article in the hotel last night." He leaned back. "I don't believe in charity, Amina. I believe in opportunity. And I don't offer positions out of pity. So if you're here expecting sympathy, I'm not," she cut in. "I want to work." That was all he needed to hear. She started the next day, entry-level administrative assistant. Pay was modest, hours were flexible. Benefits included childcare, meals, and access to a mentoring program. The first week nearly broke her. She hadn't used a computer in years beyond applying for jobs online. She didn't know how to organize digital files, or navigate Google Workspace, or set up a Zoom call without help. She made mistakes, sent emails too soon, scheduled meetings at the wrong time, and once accidentally deleted an entire contact list. But she didn't quit. She arrived early, left late, and took notes in a tiny spiral notebook like her life depended on it. Because it did. By week 4, she could manage a shared inbox. By month 2, she was scheduling logistics for donation drives. By month 4, she was Elijah's right hand for community events and remembered names, faces, allergies, and favorite snacks. She didn't just keep up, she stood out. People started noticing. Not just the way she looked, though she was always polished, always glowing, that unforgettable smile lighting up every room, but how she listened, how she could diffuse tension between departments. She handled complicated donors with the same warmth she used to pour coffee with. One afternoon, Elijah called her into his office. "You're wasted in admin," he said. "We're launching a new program, emergency relief for single moms. I need someone to run intake and logistics. Interested?" Amina blinked. "Me?" He raised one eyebrow. "Why not you?" She stopped. Then, for the first time in years, she let herself say it out loud. "Yes, I want it." It wasn't simple. The new job meant long hours, tough talks, and the weight of other women's trauma. But Amina faced every problem head-on, with grace, grit, and a quiet fire. By the end of her first year, she had gone from being a waitress left in the rain to being a respected operations coordinator at one of the state's most important nonprofits. But just when she thought she had finally gotten away from her past, it came right through the front door. It happened on a Thursday night. The Vaughn Foundation's annual gala was taking place at the Newark Museum of Art. It was a night of polished speeches, thanking donors, and high-stakes networking with the city's elite. The marble halls were filled with the sound of soft jazz music and the smell of money, ambition, and carefully chosen perfumes. Amina had been working hard behind the scenes for weeks to make it happen. She had to make sure the name tags were right, check the seating charts, change the lighting specs, and work with the caterers. She knew that this was the most important event of the year and that it had to go well. She wore a sleek black dress, modest but fitted, her hair in a soft updo, heels just high enough to add presence but low enough to chase down last-minute emergencies. Nevaeh was home with the nanny. For once, Amina had the space to walk into a room and be seen not as a mother or survivor, but as a professional. And she was ready. Until she wasn't. It began with a glance. One of the major donors, a white woman named Margaret Halston, known for funding children's libraries and sipping Chardonnay like it was medicine, paused when she saw Amina walking toward her table. Amina smiled and extended a hand. "Miss Halston, I'm Amina Ray. It's lovely to have you here tonight." Margaret looked her up and down. Then, without breaking her icy smile, she said, "I thought this was a formal event, not community outreach." It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. The subtle bite, the implication. Amina's smile didn't break. "I assure you, ma'am, you're in the right room. Let me know if you need anything." She walked away calmly, but her stomach twisted. She'd been called worse, felt the sting of condescension before, but this was different. This was her space now. She'd helped build this event from scratch, and still, to some people, she was just another black face in a nice dress. She brushed it off, until later that evening, in the back hallway near the kitchen, she overheard something that stopped her cold. Two younger staffers from a partner nonprofit, both black, both sharply dressed, were talking quietly, unaware she was standing just around the corner. "Who's the chick with Vaughn now?" one said. "The light-skinned one? That's his new assistant or something. I heard she came from nowhere." The first one chuckled. "Of course she did. One good sob story in a tight dress and boom, now she's running the show." "Always the pretty ones," the other muttered. "You grind for years, get your degree, volunteer like crazy, and then some waitress walks in with a smile and a bounce and takes your spot." Their laughter was short, but sharp, like broken glass in her chest. Amina stepped back into the hallway before they could see her. She didn't confront them. What would she say? That they were wrong? She had been a waitress. She did have a bounce in her step. And she hadn't come from nowhere. She came from hell. But they didn't know that. They didn't care. Because sometimes the hardest judgment doesn't come from the outside. It comes from people who look like you but think you don't belong. That night, after the last guest had left and the last wine glass had been cleared, Amina stayed behind to finish cleaning up. Elijah found her there, still in heels, wrapping cords. "You okay?" he asked. She hesitated, then said quietly, "Does it ever stop?" He knew exactly what she meant. "Not always," he said. "Not for people like us." "You mean black people?" "I mean people who changed the script," he replied. "People who weren't supposed to make it, but did. That kind of success makes folks uncomfortable. Sometimes it makes them cruel." Amina looked at him. "How do you deal with it?" "I don't let them decide who I am," Elijah said, "and neither should you." She nodded, but the words lingered longer than she wanted. Because the truth was, racism didn't always come in the form of slurs or threats. Sometimes it wore diamonds and handed out checks. Sometimes it sat beside you at meetings and smiled through its teeth. And sometimes it sounded like your own people questioning how you got through the door. But Amina wasn't going anywhere. She'd earned her seat at the table, not through favors or pity, but through hard work, late nights, and showing up every damn day. And while some people saw her presence as a threat, the real threat was what she was becoming. A woman who no longer needed validation. A woman who, despite the odds, was still rising. It had been 4 years and 10 months since Amina last saw Tyrese Boone. Almost 5 years to the day since he'd left her at that gas station in the pouring rain. Their 6-month-old baby in her arms, her heart shattered beyond recognition. She never expected to see him again. But then, on a quiet Wednesday morning, as she sipped coffee at her desk in the Vaughn Foundation offices, her phone lit up with a message from Joy, the receptionist. "There's a Mr. Tyrese Boone here asking to speak with you. Says it's personal." Amina stared at the message. For a moment, she thought she'd misread it, that her mind was playing tricks, that Tyrese, the man who'd walked away from both her and Nevaeh without looking back, wouldn't just walk into the lobby of her workplace like this was some casual reunion. But when she stepped into the hallway and saw him, it was like stepping into a parallel universe. He looked different, but not in the way she expected. Older, yes, but still dressed in the same flashy, superficial style. Designer sneakers, a gold watch that probably wasn't real. His hairline was starting to fade, and the cocky smile he wore wasn't nearly as confident as it had once been. "Amina," he said, standing to greet her. She didn't offer a handshake. "What are you doing here?" He chuckled awkwardly. "Damn, no hello?" "No," she said flatly. "No hello. What do you want?" Tyrese looked around the hallway like he was searching for a softer place to land. He dropped the smile. That old charm never worked on her anyway. "I just want to talk. Somewhere private, please." She considered saying no, but a part of her, the part that used to cry herself to sleep wondering why, needed to hear whatever excuse he had prepared. They stepped into a small conference room. She crossed her arms. "Talk." "I saw you on the news," he started. "That gala thing. You were up there next to Vaughn, looking like a CEO or something." She said nothing. "I didn't even know you were doing all that," he added. I don't know, I thought maybe you'd gone back to Georgia or something." "I stayed," she said. "I built something, with or without you." Tyrese nodded slowly. "I see that now. And I didn't come here to start anything. He hesitated. "I want to see my daughter." The room went still. Amina stared at him, her heart suddenly pounding for all the wrong reasons. "You want to see her?" she repeated. "I know I messed up," Tyrese said quickly. "I was in a bad place back then." "I panicked. I wasn't ready to be a dad." "You think I was?" she shot back, her voice low but sharp. "You think standing in the rain holding our baby with nowhere to go was me being ready?" "I know," he said, eyes dropping. "But I've changed, Amina, I swear. I got a job now. I'm on my feet. And she's still my kid. I deserve to know her." "No," Amina said simply. Tyrese blinked. "No? You lost that right when you left her in a gas station parking lot and didn't look back," she said. "You don't get to show up 5 years later and act like she's a souvenir you misplaced." "I'm her father," he said, a little louder now. "I got rights." "No, you don't," another voice said from the doorway. They both turned. Elijah stood there, calm as ever, but there was something dangerous in the stillness of his posture. His eyes locked on Tyrese like a warning. "And unless you want to find out how fast you can lose the little ground you think you have, I suggest you lower your voice and leave this building." Tyrese's jaw clenched. "Who are you to her, man?" Elijah stepped in fully now, placing a hand gently on Amina's back. "I'm the man who showed up when you didn't," he said. "Now, walk away." Tyrese stared at him for a beat too long, then at Amina's. "This isn't over," he muttered. "I'll do it the legal way if I have to." And then he left. Amina stood frozen, the adrenaline catching up with her. Elijah didn't say anything right away, just stood beside her, silent and steady. She finally spoke. "He wants to file for visitation." "Let him try," Elijah said. "You're not alone anymore." And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed that. The legal notice arrived 2 weeks later. A thick white envelope dropped through Amina's mail slot one morning as Nevaeh sat at the kitchen table coloring a rainbow with serious concentration. Amina picked it up with mild curiosity until she saw the name on the return address. Superior Court of Essex County, Family Division. Petitioner, Tyrese Boone. Request, petition for custody and visitation. She read it twice before she sat down, not because she didn't understand, but because something deep in her chest cracked open. He was really doing it. Tyrese, after abandoning her and Nevaeh for nearly 5 years, was now trying to insert himself back into their lives like the past didn't matter. Like a few months of steady paychecks and a new apartment erased everything he'd failed to be. "I told you he'd try the legal route," Elijah said when she showed him the papers that evening. He stood at the kitchen counter, arms folded, eyes scanning every word. "But we were prepared for this." Amina nodded, but the truth was, no matter how much you prepare, there's a special kind of fear that comes with court, especially family court. where strangers in black robes make decisions that ripple across your child's future. They hired a lawyer, Tamara Fields, a sharp, battle-tested black woman who'd handled custody cases for 15 years. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We're not here to argue emotions," Tamara told Amina during their first meeting. "We're here to present a record, a history." And Amina had history. Tamara asked for every document, every diaper receipt, every pediatrician bill, every school enrollment form, every birthday party photo with Tyrese missing from the frame. "This is what wins cases," she explained. "The state doesn't care if you were hurt. They care if you can prove you showed up, and he didn't." The court date was set for late June. Amina spent the next month sleeping in fragments, her mind filled with worst-case scenarios. What if the judge bought Tyrese's act? What if he got weekend visits? What if he turned Nevaeh's world upside down after she'd finally known peace? On the day of the hearing, Amina wore a navy suit Elijah had bought her, clean, fitted, and powerful. Nevaeh stayed home with Joy, the receptionist who'd become a surrogate aunt over the years. Elijah sat beside Amina in the courtroom gallery, silent but solid, his presence enough to keep her from falling apart. Tyrese was already there when she walked in. He wore a dress shirt and a tie, slightly wrinkled, slightly off. His lawyer looked fresh out of law school and overconfident. Tyrese glanced at Amina but didn't speak. The judge was a middle-aged white man with a kind face but sharp eyes. He wasted no time. "Mr. Boone," he said after the introductions, "you're requesting joint legal custody and weekly visitation, is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Tyrese replied, voice rehearsed. "I've turned my life around. I have a job and a stable home, and I want to be in my daughter's life. She deserves to know her father." Tamara rose smoothly. "Your Honor, may I present Exhibit A through Exhibit G, documents detailing 5 years of complete abandonment?" Tamara rose smoothly. "Your Honor, may I present Exhibit A through Exhibit G, documents detailing 5 years of complete abandonment? No financial support, no phone calls, no birthdays, no holidays, not even a postcard." She laid each file on the bench one by one, her voice unwavering. "We also submit a certified copy of the text message Mr. Boone sent to Miss Ray the night he left. You and that kid? Not my problem anymore." The courtroom fell quiet. Tyrese's lawyer stammered out something about mental health and financial hardship, but Tamara was ready. "Hardship doesn't excuse total disappearance," she countered. He had every opportunity to file for contact, to send support, to inquire about his child's well-being. He chose silence. And now that Miss Ray has rebuilt her life, he wants to play father without earning it. Then she sat down. It was done. The judge read through the evidence quietly for several long minutes before looking up. "Mr. Boone," he said calmly, "being a parent isn't just biology. It's presence. It's consistency. It's showing up when it's not convenient. You failed to do that." Tyrese opened his mouth, but the judge held up a hand. "Petition for custody is denied. The petition for visitation is denied. Miss Ray retains full legal and physical custody." Amina exhaled for the first time in weeks. As the courtroom emptied, Tyrese approached her in the hallway. His face was tight. "You're really going to keep her from me like I'm nothing?" Amina didn't yell. She didn't argue. She looked him square in the eye and said, "I'm not keeping her from you. You did that. I just made sure you don't get to undo the damage now that it's convenient." She turned and walked away, Elijah at her side, and behind her, the door to that chapter finally closed. The court ruling should have been the end of it, but Tyrese wasn't done. 2 months after his petition was denied, Amina received another letter, this one from a mediation center in Newark. Tyrese was requesting a reunification meeting, citing a child's right to know both parents. It wasn't legally binding, but it was a trap, an attempt to rebuild his image and eventually try again. Amina was tired of fighting ghosts, tired of having her peace disturbed. But then Tamara, her lawyer, said something that changed her perspective. You don't have to agree, but if you do, this is your chance to take back control, on your terms, in your space, with your people. Amina thought about it. Then she looked at her daughter. Nevaeh was now 5.5. Bright, curious, always asking questions. Lately, she'd started asking about where she came from. Not in the abstract, not about storks or fairy tales, but real questions. Did I have a dad before Elijah? Why don't I remember him? Was he mean to you? Amina never lied, but she also never told the whole truth. And maybe it was time for Nevaeh to say what she wanted to say. She agreed to go to the meeting, with some conditions. It would take place at the Vaughn Foundation's main office. There would be someone in charge of it, it would be brief, and Elijah would be there the whole time. Tyrese said yes. The day of the meeting, Nevaeh wore her favorite yellow dress, the one with tiny white daisies stitched along the hem. Her curls were pulled into 2 puffballs, and she insisted on bringing her plush unicorn backpack just in case it gets boring. In the conference room, Tyrese sat at the far end of the table. He looked nervous. His hands tapped a slow rhythm on his jeans. He wore a clean button-down shirt and tried to smile when Nevaeh walked in. "Hi," he said, voice soft. Nevaeh looked at him, eyes wide, then looked at Amina, who nodded gently. She turned back. "Hi." Tyrese cleared his throat. "You've grown. You look just like your mom." Nevaeh blinked. "Are you my real dad?" Amina's heart caught. Tyrese fumbled. Well, I'm your biological father. Yeah, that means we're connected by blood." Nevaeh had never thought about that. "But I don't remember you." "I wasn't around," he admitted. "But I'm trying to be now. I want to get to know you." Nevaeh tilted her head. "Why?" Tyrese paused. "Because I made a mistake, and I want to fix it." Another pause. Then Nevaeh looked over at Elijah, who was sitting quietly nearby. "Can I ask a question?" "Of course, baby," Elijah said, sitting forward. Nevaeh turned back to Tyrese. "Did you know about me when I was a baby?" Tyrese shifted. "Yeah, I did." "Did you love me then?" He hesitated. "I didn't know how to be a dad," he said. Nevaeh didn't flinch. "Okay," she said simply. "I think I understand." And then, without another word, she walked across the room, climbed onto Elijah's lap, and wrapped her arms around his neck. The room went silent. Even Tyrese didn't speak. Elijah held her, kissed the side of her head, and whispered something no one else could hear. Nevaeh pulled back just enough to look him in the eyes. "You're my daddy," she said. "I don't need a new one." Amina felt her throat tighten. The room blurred for a second. Tyrese looked down at his lap. For once, he had no comeback, no defense, just silence. Tamara stepped in gently. "I think that's all for today." Tyrese nodded, almost to himself. As they walked out, Nevaeh held Elijah's hand on one side and Amina's on the other. Her little voice piped up as they hit the hallway. "Can we get ice cream now? I was really brave." Elijah chuckled. "You were more than brave. You were honest." Amina smiled, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. "What flavor?" "Mint chocolate chip," Nevaeh said with a grin. "Always." Outside, the sun had broken through the clouds. And just like that, the choice had been made. Not by a judge or a lawyer or a man from the past, but by the little girl who mattered most. She chose love. She chose the people who showed up. She chose her real family. The proposal didn't happen in a 5-star restaurant or on a mountaintop. There was no violinist hiding in the bushes, no flash mob waiting in the wings. It happened on a sidewalk, right after ice cream. They were walking home from the small mom-and-pop creamery Nevaeh loved, the one with faded red umbrellas and hand-painted signs in the window. It was late afternoon in early September, the air warm but starting to shift toward fall. Amina carried Nevaeh's empty cone wrapper in one hand and held Elijah's hand in the other. Nevaeh skipped ahead, humming to herself, dancing around cracks in the sidewalk like they were lava. It felt like any other day, and maybe that was the point, because the best moments never come with warning. "Are you okay?" Elijah asked quietly. Amina glanced up at him. "Better than okay." He smiled, that quiet, knowing smile she'd come to love. They walked a few more steps before he stopped. Just like that, in the middle of the sidewalk. Amina turned. "What's wrong?" Elijah reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, weathered box. Not velvet, not flashy. It looked like something he'd carried for years. Her breath caught. "Elijah," she whispered. "He didn't kneel. He didn't need to." "I've watched you rise from the lowest place anyone can fall," he said. "I've seen you fight for your daughter, for your dignity, for your future. You didn't just survive. You built something out of nothing. You didn't need saving." He paused, his voice steady. "But I want to be the man who walks beside you while you build the rest of your life. I want to be your partner, your peace, yours forever." He opened the box. Inside was a gold ring. Simple, elegant, timeless. Amina didn't speak for a moment. Her eyes shimmered with the kind of tears that don't come from sadness, but from healing. She nodded once, firm, certain. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Elijah exhaled, a soft laugh escaping, like a weight had lifted. Behind them, Nevaeh clapped her hands. "Did he do it? Did he ask you to marry him?" Amina turned to her, laughing through tears. "He did. And you said yes?" "I did." Nevaeh ran up and threw her arms around both of them at once, a tangle of curls and sunshine and joy. "I'm going to wear a sparkly dress at the wedding," she declared. "You'll be our flower girl," Elijah said, "the best one the world's ever seen." They stood there a while, the three of them, right there on that cracked Newark sidewalk. No witnesses, no fanfare, no camera crews. Just love. Real, quiet, grounded love. Later that night, after Nevaeh had gone to bed, Amina sat beside Elijah on the porch of their little house. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "5 years ago, I was abandoned at a gas station. Tonight, I said yes to a man who saw my worth." Elijah wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "And now," he said softly, "you never have to stand in the rain alone again." The higher Amina rose, the more people seemed to whisper behind her back. Most of the time, she let it slide. Jealousy was loud, and she had real work to do. But one morning, about 3 months after the proposal, a quiet storm started brewing in the most unexpected way. It began with a headline: Vaughn Foundation facing questions over hiring practices. At first, it looked like just another clickbait headline. But by noon, the story was being shared on social media by local blogs, small news outlets, and a few Twitter accounts that loved stirring the pot. The article didn't name Amina directly, but it didn't need to. It referred to a former waitress with no nonprofit management experience who had mysteriously climbed into a leadership role at one of New Jersey's most prestigious foundations. The article insinuated that her rapid rise had little to do with merit and everything to do with her relationship with Elijah Vaughn. They called her the pretty assistant, implied she'd been rewarded for something other than hard work. Amina stared at the screen in disbelief, her stomach turned. The writer didn't have facts, just innuendo. No mention of the programs she'd built, no mention of the mothers she'd helped. No mention of the hours, the weekends, or the sleepless nights spent building something real. Just her past, just her title, just her appearance. By noon, she was trending locally, but not in a good way. When she walked into work, people looked at her differently. Some avoided eye contact, some whispered, and one woman, an older board member in a pearl necklace, actually said, "I told Elijah to be careful mixing business with his personal life." Elijah was furious. "We'll file a defamation claim," he told her. "We'll shut them down. I won't let anyone smear you like this." But Amina shook her head. "No," she said quietly. "Let me answer it." He looked at her. "Are you sure?" "Yes, I fought too hard to let a rumor define me. I'll go on the record." And she did. That night, Amina sat down for an exclusive one-on-one interview with the Newark Ledger. She wore a dark green blazer, minimal makeup, and her hair in a soft twist. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She just told the truth. "I was a waitress," she said, "a single mom. I was abandoned by the father of my child at a gas station in the rain with nowhere to go. Elijah Vaughn offered me a chance, not charity. I worked my way up. I made mistakes, learned fast, and took every opportunity seriously." The interviewer leaned in. "Do you think people are attacking you because you're a woman?" Amina held his gaze. "No," she said. "I think they're attacking me because I'm a black woman who didn't stay in the place they expected me to. I didn't stay small. I didn't stay quiet. I didn't stay struggling." The clip went viral overnight. People who had judged her without knowing her started to change their tune. Mothers wrote in, thanking her for speaking out. Young women of color posted clips from the interview with captions like, "She said what needed to be said." By the end of the week, the same outlets that once questioned her were publishing follow-up pieces on her leadership, her impact, and her real qualifications. The original hit piece was quietly taken down, and the anonymous source behind it turned out to be a bitter former employee, one who had been passed over for promotion after multiple HR complaints. He was fired before the ink on the story dried. Amina didn't celebrate. She didn't post a victory dance or clap back at the haters. She just walked into work Monday morning, head high, smile calm, and got back to it. Because success wasn't a headline. It was who she became when no one was looking. Just when Amina thought the storm had passed, a new one started brewing. But this time, it threatened everything she and Elijah had built together. It began on a gray Tuesday morning. The phone buzzed on Elijah's desk at the Vaughn Foundation. It was the foundation's general counsel. Her voice was tight, careful. "We'd just received a letter from the state attorney general's office," she said. "They're opening an inquiry into the foundation's recent grants and financial reporting. They want all accounting records, emails, donor files, expense reports, everything." Elijah's face didn't show panic, but Amina felt her chest tighten. They had done everything by the book. The foundation had always filed its 990s, complied with audits, and kept transparent books. Goktwe Noidia Gong Tu charity lawyer blog +2. Still, the demand from the state triggered a ripple of fear. In the U.S., nonprofits can be subject to audit or investigation by the IRS, state authorities, or attorneys general when there are allegations or even suspicion of misused funds, improper fundraising, or failure to follow charitable rules. Nepalagal Institute.2, charity lawyer blog.2. Word spread quickly. Local news outlets, the same small blogs that once tried to question Amina's rise, picked up the story. A headline flashed on screen. "Famous billionaire's charity under probe. Where did the money go?" Donors called. Some demanded refunds. Some withheld their pledged donations. Volunteers canceled events. The foundation building felt colder. Reception desks saw less foot traffic. That night, Amina sat with Elijah in the foundation's empty conference room. He was quiet, his suit jacket unbuttoned and his tie loosened. "You think this is about us?" she finally said, voice low. He nodded. "They found a way to attack, not just what I built, but what you represent." She swallowed hard. She'd learned that with success came envy, with visibility came scrutiny, but she hadn't expected this level of pressure. Their lawyer, the same one who handled Amina's custody battle, recommended they respond quickly and transparently. In nonprofit governments, transparency is often the strongest defense. By providing open access to financials, bank statements, grant records, and third-party audits, legitimate organizations can often survive investigations intact. Cameron Hawkins' Law +2, member clicks +2, Elijah chose the Steel Thunder approach. Before rumors morphed into accusations, he had the foundation release a public statement. It acknowledged the inquiry, committed to full cooperation, and reaffirmed that all past financial operations had been lawful, documented, and in service of the mission. The press conference was humble. No grand podium, no flashy suits, just Elijah, Amina, and their lawyer standing in front of the building, hands clasped, faces calm. He spoke plainly. "We welcome scrutiny. Transparency keeps us honest. I built this foundation to give people a second chance because someone once gave me one." The statement resonated. Some old donors came forward again. Some skeptical voices quieted. But the investigation dragged on. Weeks turned into months. Paperwork piled up. Every grant, every donation, every disbursement was examined under a microscope. Third-party auditors were called in. Employees spent nights gathering receipts, contracts, and correspondences. Under U.S. nonprofit oversight rules, such audits are common when complaints arise, or if the organization solicits funds across state lines, receives grants, or has large revenue streams. Charity Lawyer Blog +2, Cook Tway Nordea +2. For Amina, this was more than an organizational crisis. It was deeply personal. The whispers she had endured earlier about being the pretty assistant who slept her way up resurfaced under a different form: suspicion, insinuation, and distrust. She avoided social media. She hid her phone at night. She worried about Nevaeh. Would the child suffer because of grown-ups' battles? But every time her courage faltered, she remembered that gas station night, the rain, the fear. The moment she vowed, if she ever rose again, it would be on her own terms. So she went to work. She combed through records, double-checked spreadsheets, and corrected minor bookkeeping errors. She even volunteered to oversee one audit herself because she believed transparency wasn't a weakness, it was a shield. Slowly, people began to see a relieved smile from a longtime volunteer, a nod of approval from an old donor, the hush spreading through gossip threads. Then the call came. It was late evening, the same general counsel. Her tone had changed, tired, quiet. They closed the investigation. No charges. All funding and grant activity was cleared as legitimate. Relief washed through the foundation like rain after a drought. Elijah closed his eyes and leaned back. "We're clean," Amina exhaled, her shoulders uncurled. She looked at her daughter's empty desk in the office, the same workspace she'd set up when Nevaeh was in daycare, and felt a deep sense of vindication. She remembered that night at the gas station, about how quickly life can change, from being left behind, humiliated and scared, to being loved, stable, and having a purpose. And this time, she realized, surviving wasn't enough. Standing proud in the face of suspicion, that was success. The foundation released another public statement. This time, it wasn't defensive. It was hopeful and forward-looking. It promised renewed commitment to transparency, quarterly reports, updated public dashboards, open financial filings, more than legally required. That is exactly what trustworthy nonprofits do to preserve accountability, avoid misuse accusations, and rebuild trust with communities and donors alike. In the end, the investigation didn't break them. It strengthened them. Because true strength comes from being tested. You have to choose to be honest, even when no one is looking. And from knowing that true worth comes from honesty, consistency, and the bravery to stand up for what you believe in, not from gossip or rumors. If you asked most people in Newark about Amina Davis 10 years ago, they'd never have heard of her. Just another waitress. Just another tired, overworked mom holding a baby and a hope. But if you ask them now, they'll tell you she's the woman who rewrote her destiny, without shortcuts, without excuses, and without ever losing her soul. And maybe that's the lesson. Because life didn't hand Amina a second chance. She built it with her own two hands, on the back of nights no one saw, choices no one applauded, and dignity no one could take away. We love stories where the good guys win, But the truth is, in real life, good people don't always get what they deserve right away. Sometimes they get humiliated, they get overlooked, they get left in the rain at a gas station with a baby on their hip and no idea how they're going to make it. That's where Amina started. She was young, black, and dismissed. She was underestimated not just by strangers, but by the man who was supposed to love her. The one who called her too much before he walked away and left her with a crying child and a broken heart. But she didn't let that moment define her. She let it shape her. Amina's story reminds us that resilience isn't some flashy skill you post about online. It's quiet. It's gritty. It looks like waking up early even when your body aches. It sounds like saying no to shame even when the world is pointing fingers. When Elijah Vaughn came into her life, he didn't save her, he saw her. That's different. Too often, we think of happy endings as someone else rescuing us. But Amina had already rescued herself. All Elijah did was hand her a flashlight so she could see the next step more clearly. Together, they built something powerful, not just a foundation that gives back, but a partnership rooted in respect, honesty, and shared pain that became shared purpose. And still, the world tried to take her down. People questioned her intelligence, her professionalism, and her motives, because the world doesn't always know what to do with a black woman who refuses to stay broken. They called her a charity case, an assistant, a kept woman. But what she really was unstoppable. And she proved that success isn't measured by titles or press releases. It's measured by how you show up when no one claps, by how you carry yourself when no one's watching, by how you raise a daughter who believes in her mother more than any headline. That's the real legacy. Nevaeh will grow up never questioning her worth. Not because she was given wealth, but because she watched her mother fight for dignity every single day. And she learned that being abandoned didn't make her unworthy. It made her chosen. She was chosen by a mother who stayed, by a stepfather who showed up, by a future that wouldn't let her story end in tragedy. You see, every single person watching this right now has a moment that could define them, their own gas station in the storm moment. And you have two choices. You can let that moment tell you who you are, or you can do what Amina did. You can tell it, you don't get to decide who I become. This is hidden worth. This is a black story. This is your story, if you're brave enough to write it. So if you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been humiliated, dismissed, or walked out on, if you've ever held a crying child in one arm and your broken spirit in the other, remember this. You are not done. You are not worthless. You are not too late. You are the author of your next chapter, and the pen is still in your hand. So write something beautiful. The first time Nevaeh ever saw snow, she didn't know what to call it. She was barely 3, bundled in a too-big coat Elijah had bought the night before, standing on the porch of their small Newark home with her tiny hands outstretched. "Is it cotton candy from the sky?" she asked, her eyes wide with surprise. Amina laughed softly behind her, and the sound was warm and full of love. "No, baby, that is snow." "Snow is magic," Nevaeh said in a whisper. And just like that, a little girl who had been left in the rain learned what it meant to be in the light. Nevaeh lived in a safe house as a child. Bedtime was not for fights or silence, but for storybooks and lullabies, where people were always happy to answer questions and give hugs, where pancakes had smiley faces on them, and the kitchen was the place to have dance parties on the weekends. She never thought about the gas station. She never forgot the man who left her behind. All she ever knew was that her mama had arms strong enough to carry both of them through anything, and her bonus daddy, Elijah, had shoulders broad enough to lift her up to the stars. They never hid the truth from her. When she was 5, Amina sat her down on the porch swing and explained everything as gently as possible. "Some people aren't ready to be parents, baby," she said. "And sometimes the people who leave are the ones who make room for better ones to come." Nevaeh had tilted her head. "Like Daddy Elijah?" "Exactly like Daddy Elijah." She nodded once. Then I'm glad he came. And just like that, it was done. No trauma, no confusion, just the certainty of being deeply, unconditionally loved. At school, Nevaeh thrived. She was the kid who shared her crayons, the one who sat with the new student at lunch, and the one who told the teacher when someone was crying in the bathroom. Her heart was wide open, her confidence unshaken. When she learned how to write full sentences, she left little notes all over the house. You are the best mommy ever. Daddy Elijah makes the best eggs. I love my family bigger than the sky. Those notes ended up taped to the fridge, the mirror, and the dashboard of Elijah's car. They weren't just scribbles, they were proof. Proof that healing had worked. Proof that breaking the cycle was possible. People often asked Amina what her proudest moment was. Was it launching the literacy program for girls in underfunded schools? Was it winning the Newark Impact Award? Was it testifying in court to protect her daughter? But her answer never changed. My proudest moment, she'd say, is watching my daughter be a child, a real child, free, joyful, unburdened. Because for Amina, it wasn't just about survival. It was about changing the story so Nevaeh never had to carry the same weight. She didn't have to question if she was wanted. She didn't have to wonder if she was enough. She knew. And that kind of knowing, that deep, unshakable knowing, is the foundation for a whole, powerful life. Nevaeh grew to love books, just like her mom. By age 8, she devoured every illustrated biography of trailblazing women in the school library. Her favorite was Ruby Bridges. She was brave, and she was a kid like me, Nevaeh said once during a school project. And she changed the world by showing up. Amina had blinked back tears in the parent audience, not because she was surprised, but because she realized her daughter was growing into a girl who believed change was hers to create. She had no chip on her shoulder, no bitterness in her bones, just grace, kindness, strength. Every once in a while, Nevaeh would ask about the man who left them, not with pain, just curiosity. "Does he know I'm happy now?" she asked once. Amina paused before answering. "I think if he saw you, he'd know exactly what he missed." Nevaeh nodded, satisfied. Then that's enough. And it was, because Nevaeh didn't need revenge. She didn't need closure. She just needed joy, and she had it in abundance. She had Elijah, who never missed a dance recital. She had Amina, who cheered the loudest at every spelling bee. She had a home where laughter lived in the walls, and love lived in every corner. Nevaeh was proof that trauma doesn't have to pass down like a family heirloom. It can end with one brave mother and one good man. It can end with bedtime stories and birthday cakes. It can end with healing. And it can begin, again, with a little girl standing in the snow, arms open to the sky, whispering that magic is real. Because in her world, it was. It took Amina years to understand something that would one day become her greatest wisdom, that sometimes the most painful goodbye is actually life's most generous gift. When Tyrese left her at that gas station, soaked in rain, heart pounding with panic, she thought it was the end of everything, the end of love, the end of hope, the end of the life she thought she was building. But what she didn't know, what so many of us don't realize when we're in the thick of betrayal, is that being abandoned isn't always a tragedy. Sometimes it's divine timing. Sometimes it's the universe clearing space for someone better. Not just someone who treats you well, but someone who sees you fully. Someone who doesn't flinch when life gets hard. Someone who stays. We spend so much of our lives chasing closure from people who were never meant to stay. We reread their messages. We replay the last conversation. We ask ourselves what we did wrong. But what if you didn't do anything wrong? What if the people who walked away were simply never equipped to walk with you into the next chapter? What if their departure was the beginning, not the end? Amina didn't just survive Tyrese's abandonment. She rose. She mothered. She learned. She grew into the kind of woman who no longer begged to be chosen, because she finally understood her worth had never been up for debate. And that is the lesson. If someone left you, If they ghosted you, cheated on you, betrayed you, humiliated you, dismissed you, or made you feel like too much or not enough, let them go. Let them walk. And then do the bravest thing you'll ever do. Keep walking toward the life you deserve anyway. Because here's the truth that too many people don't say out loud. Being left is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their capacity. Some people don't know how to love deeply. Some people aren't ready to stay. Some people can't carry the kind of soul you have. And that's not your fault. That's not your burden. Amina's story, like so many Black stories, reminds us that the greatest power we hold is not revenge, it's reinvention. It's not showing them what they missed, it's showing yourself what you were always capable of. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not unworthy of love, support, or protection. You are simply becoming. And sometimes that becoming requires a little heartbreak. But I promise you this, there is someone out there, whether it's a partner, a friend, a mentor, or even your own future self, who will meet you where you are and say, "You don't have to prove anything to me. I already see you." That's what Elijah did for Amina. He didn't save her. He didn't fix her. He stood beside her while she rebuilt herself. And that is the kind of love worth waiting for. So to the woman watching this who was left, to the man picking up pieces someone else shattered, to the child inside you that still wonders why they walked away, let this be your reminder. They did not define you. They made space for the one who will. You are worth staying for. You are worth choosing. You are worth loving in the daylight, without conditions, without silence, without shame. This is your hidden worth. This is your second chance. This is your new beginning. So keep going, keep rising. And if this story moved you, if it felt like looking in a mirror, then subscribe to this channel right now. Tap that bell so you never miss another Black story that reminds you you are not alone. You are not forgotten, and your best chapter has yet to be written. Leave a comment below telling us what part of Amina's journey spoke to you the most. And share this with someone who needs a reminder that their worth isn't lost just because someone else couldn't see it. We see it. We see you. And we are so glad you're still here.